All right, today we are pulling back the curtain on two organizations that, let's be honest, are often surrounded by a ton of mystery and speculation: Freemasonry and Scientology. And we're going to get a really transparent look straight from the perspective of people who've been members for a long time. You know, this quote from our source material really sets the tone for everything we're about to cover. The goal here isn't to defend anybody or to try and persuade you one way or the other. It's just about sharing what these insiders have to say so you can understand how these groups see themselves. Okay, so let's dive in. Here's a quick roadmap of what we're covering. First, we'll clear the air on who's speaking. Then, we'll look at how you actually join, their core philosophies, which are super different, the structure of how you move up, what their ultimate purpose is, and then we'll wrap it all up with a pretty thought-provoking question. First things first, let's meet the people giving us this insider perspective. We're going to be hearing from Joey Kimbro, who's been a Freemason for 20 years, and Brandon Joe Williams, a long-term dedicated Scientologist. And they're really open about this right from the start. They're not trying to recruit anyone. It's all about transparency. They're pretty much laying all their cards on the table so that you can form your own opinion. So how does someone actually get in the door? This is where it gets interesting. Because as we're about to see, the two organizations take completely different approaches to bringing new people into the fold. And wow, you can see the contrast right away. Freemasonry is all about a personal, peer-reviewed process. You have to petition, you need a sponsor, and then a committee actually investigates your character before the existing members vote on you. Scientology, on the other hand, starts with a much more standardized system. You take a bunch of tests, do some introductory courses, and then based on all that, they do a formal evaluation. Okay, next up, let's look at how knowledge is actually passed down. And this right here reveals a huge philosophical split between these two groups. It really all boils down to this one question: where does truth come from? Is it found in some ancient, unwritten wisdom that's passed from one person to another? Or is it located in these meticulously preserved, unchangeable texts? So according to Kimbro, Freemasonry is, and this is his quote, 100% wisdom-based. Knowledge is passed through a mentor who helps you decode and memorize texts that are written in a kind of code on purpose. You literally can't understand them without a guide passing on that oral tradition and those life lessons. Now, for Scientology, Williams explains it's the complete opposite. The source text is absolutely everything. Their main principle is, if it isn't written, it isn't true. Any teaching that doesn't come directly from L. Ron Hubbard's writing, they call it verbal tech, is a huge no-no, all to make sure the information stays pure. Okay, so what's really fascinating about this next part is looking at how a member actually moves up. We're going to break down the structure and the level of commitment it takes to climb the ladder in each organization. In Freemasonry, the whole journey starts in what's called the Blue Lodge. You work your way through three main degrees. First, Entered Apprentice, then Fellowcraft, and finally, Master Mason. And for traditionalists, that's considered the highest rank you can achieve. You do it by memorizing work and proving you get it to your mentor. After that, you can choose to pursue more degrees, but that's totally optional. Scientology has this incredibly detailed chart called the Bridge to Total Freedom. Think of it as having two parallel paths. There's training, where you learn to be an auditor to guide other people, and there's processing, where you're the one receiving that spiritual counseling. Members move up level by level on both sides, and they get formal certificates to mark their progress toward higher spiritual awareness. So, what's all this going to cost you in time and money? Well, for Freemasonry, the main thing is the time you put in to get those first degrees. The financial side is pretty low. The source says it's about $95 to join, and after that, how involved you are is up to you. In contrast, Scientology can be a way more intense commitment. Williams mentions that to get to the upper levels, you could be looking at 45 to 60 hours a week for years. And financially, he says he's personally spent over $300,000 on his own training and processing. Which, of course, brings us to a huge question. After all that commitment, what's the end goal? What are these organizations ultimately trying to do for their members? For Freemasonry, Kimbro boils it all down to a very simple, very practical motto: making good men better. That's it. The whole point is moral and personal self-improvement in a community of brothers. For Scientology, Williams describes the purpose a bit differently. It's about helping a person handle their own life and reach their full spiritual potential. The goal is to move up that bridge to get to higher and higher states of awareness and ability. So we've looked at the structures, the philosophies, the different levels of commitment, all through this lens of transparency. And just like the speakers wanted, all this information is meant to give you an educated perspective. The conclusions? Well, those are up to you. But, their goal of being transparent really highlights one last crucial point. We've just seen two completely different paths to self-betterment. One is built on ancient wisdom and mentorship, and the other is based on absolute, unwavering loyalty to a modern text. And this leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. When you're talking about a system for personal improvement or spiritual growth, what's the ultimate source of truth? Is it the unwritten wisdom passed down through generations of people, or is it the explicit rules written down in a book? Based on everything you've just heard, which structure do you think holds more power, and why? That's something to chew on.